It is always a pleasure to take up session with Taxmann because we have a lot of learned professionals here. And I'm here going to be taking up for another 1 hour. And we're going to be talking on the topic of acquisition and transfer of immovable property. I'm sure a lot of you who've been reading newspapers and seeing the buzz around, there is a lot of NRI interest in buying land in India for multiple purposes, be it an agricultural land, be it house property. There is a lot of interest there. At the same time, we see a lot of interest by Indian individuals having to invest outside India, especially in Dubai. So this topic that we're going to be discussing today, we are going to be covering up a few pitfalls that this buzz is being missing upon, a few areas which you need to be more cautious of when you are dealing in this transaction so that you do not end up yourself into troubles. So let's begin today. We'll be touching upon this will be our current agenda. Understand whom we are going to be speaking about, NRIs, and who will be called as NRIs for our purposes. Because the definition of NRI has different meanings, different definitions under different acts. In fact, even in FEMA itself, there are two definitions of NRI for two different regulations. So we need to have that clarity of whom we are going to be talking about. And then we're going to be talking about immovable property in India. What are the rules, do's and don'ts? And similarly, if you want to acquire or transfer immovable property outside India, what are the do's and don'ts? We're going to be speaking on them. Before we begin and delve deeper, I would want to know and understand our audiences today. Can we use the chat box? And if you are an NRI, please, in your chat box, please mention NRI. If you are a professional who are going to be listening to this session, please put up professional so that when we are taking it up, we will go accordingly deeper and trying to cover every nitty-gritty which will be beneficial to you. So if you are NRI listening to this entire video, please post NRI. And if you are a professional who are going to be listening to this stuff, please mention professional so that accordingly we will make sure we are covering all the transactions. Okay, I'm getting a lot of professionals here. So let's then consider, I'm sure a lot of you would have had queries from your non-resident clients respect to the same. So then let's make you ready for the same. Okay, so this is the bus that I was going to be talking about. This is an article which has been come from Economic Times and just a few days before, which reads as that Indians are now amongst the first top largest buyers in Dubai for the properties, for houses. In fact, you would have not been surprised if you're getting a call or you're seeing a Facebook ad or an Insta ad saying buy, own a home in Dubai. Yes, that is something which is going on, but hence it is very, very important to understand what are the areas wherein defaults are happening. In fact, to that extent that in the year 21-22, more than 100 million US dollars was remitted outside India, and as they were specifically for purchase of properties abroad. So this numbers will let us know the extent to which these transactions are happening in the market today, especially when I talk about the properties purchases in Dubai. There is law, which is the local law, but more importantly, what they're also propagating and propagating wrong, which is the key point, and which I've taken it as the first slide itself, that all the professionals are aware of this first key area, is that they are also saying, boss, आपके पास थोड़ा installment है, आप उतने में खरीद लो land, and later on, what you can do is either you can take loan or you can make a deferred payment. Now, this is something which is not allowed by RBI, which is breaching the FEMA rules. Deferred payment is not allowed, installment payment is not allowed, because you'll be creating an obligation outside India, and there is a limit to which obligations can be created. Hence, please, 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 professionals, make sure we don't invest, and we do not advise our clients to invest in such properties outside India, which has deferred payments, installments, loan options, because they are all not allowed. And there have been so much ads and calls around this thing that I'm sure a lot of people have made mistakes in this. Further into our presentation, we are also covering that just in case any of our clients have made this mistake, what are the repercussions and what are the ways in which we can try and cover them up. So, as I said, what is the definition of NRI? The definition of NRI in a lot of regulations like borrowing, lending regulation, deposit regulation, it speaks about a person resident outside India who is a citizen of India. But when it comes to non-debt rules, they have specifically mentioned an individual who is a resident outside India, who is a citizen of India. Very important, that word is different, person resident outside India. In general parlance, a person resident outside India, it covers beyond individuals. But at the same time, here it is also mentioned, it is a citizen of India. Hence, that thing is little important to understand how this definition may be of help. But for immovable property purposes, let us understand that any individual who is a resident outside India, who is a citizen of India, who is an OCI card holder, is going to be an NRI. Now we move further to immovable property in India. Different ways. Here we are going to be covering up, and then we have gone in detail for each of the ways. The first way is acquiring. If you are purchasing and paying consideration for it, that is first way. Second way is you're going to be transferring the immovable property. Third, what you may want to do is understand that in immovable property, there are basically two types. Indian laws have divided the land or property or immovable property in whole into two categories. One, we will call it as an eligible category, wherein most of the people are allowed to invest. The second category, we'll call it as an ineligible category, which are the category which is with restrictions. I am being lenient by saying with restrictions, but we can also use the words as prohibited sectors without permission, like the agricultural land, farmhouse, and plantation. These are the three areas or three types of property wherein investment is not allowed by NRIs or OCIs without specific permissions or without, or general permission is not given. The third, we're going to be talking about that what are the scenarios or cases wherein inheritance happens, and what we are required to do if an NRI is inheriting or a resident is inheriting property. And the last area that we will speak about is what do we do in case of gifting, be it from resident to non-resident or non-resident to resident. For this entire presentation, everywhere that I am using the word NRI, please make sure I am including OCI. The presentation is everywhere mentioning NRI and OCI, but I am taking a little liberty and some benefit to my throat by only saying words NRI, but it definitely includes OCI wherever NRIs are included here. So now we have picked up the first part of that entire stuff that we're going to be talking. And we're talking about what are the eligible areas, what are the conditions that we need to fulfill if we want to purchase or acquire an immovable property. So the first, as we said, that again, since it is immovable property, two categories will come and conditions for both the categories will be different. So if we are speaking about eligible immovable property, which means agricultural land, plantation property and farmhouse के अलावा की कोई भी property, be it residential, commercial, whatever other properties, they will be called as eligible. If that is going to be purchased by an NRI, then they are allowed to make the purchases from their NRO account, which is a non-resident ordinary account, or they can directly make payment for the purchase of that immovable property from their NRE account or from their foreign bank account itself. These are the three ways from which they can purchase this property. If they are purchasing this property, not from, if they are receiving it as a gift from any resident, then in that case also, they can receive it as a gift. An NRI can receive it as a gift, but there is some condition here which we will delve it in the next topic. Secondly, in gifting, what it is mentioned is that a resident individual can gift his property to a non-resident, provided it is falling into the category of relative. Now, here the definition, if you will see, as chartered accountant, we know that the definition of relative is different in different laws. Here they have specifically mentioned the definition of Section 277 of the Companies Act. Now, Companies Act 2013 definition of relative is very small. It covers only the father, mother, son, brother, sister, brother's wife, son's wife and daughter's husband. मतलब छोटी सी फैली, मैं और मेरा छोटा सा परिवार, हम दो, हमारे दो और उनके दो husbands, बस. Grandfather is not included, chacha, chachi not included, chacha is included, brother, but brother ki wife, chachi not included. So, how we have a larger definition of relative under Income Tax Act, that definition is not there under Companies Act. And here, under FEMA, RBI has chosen that gifting karna hai, then only the definition of smaller definition of Section 277 of the Companies Act 2013 needs to be applied. Third, if you're going to be purchasing immovable property, make sure you do your transaction only via these three accounts that have been mentioned, which is NRO, NRE, and foreign bank account. Do not do it from using traveler's check, foreign currency notes, or any other mode that has not been specifically permitted. Permitted mein ye teen modes hi hai. We have of late also been seeing that people are using different platforms for making remittances. Do not use it. They are not specifically permitted. Only routes that are permitted is NRO, NRE, and direct banking channels say making payment from your, maybe from your foreign bank. But if you want to purchase your immovable property, say from any NRI, then you have to make sure that the original NRI had purchased this property from using these three mediums, or he had purchased it and he had complied by the RBI laws, and that was a valid purchase, or a valid purchase as per legally valid purchase. When you are purchasing, when we as an NRI are purchasing from another NRI, make sure the original purchase is via those three mediums, or it was a valid purchase. If you're purchasing from a resident, not a trouble at all. Now I am going to the second point. Now, purchase of immovable property. Now here there is a little twist that I want to put it up, is that what will happen if we are going to be gifting? Like if, all of you may be aware that if you are a resident individual and you want to gift any amount to your, okay, let me rephrase my question. You are a resident individual. Can you purchase flat? Answer is of course yes. Is there a limit to which I can purchase flat? No. If I have 100 crores and I want to purchase any immovable property, let's not say flat, but this is applicable to immovable property. I'm just using flat as an example. So I'll repeat. Say if any resident individual has 100 crores and he is purchasing an immovable property worth 10 crore or 100 crores, is he allowed to do it? Is the answer yes? Correct. Thanks, Apurva. Yes. So a resident individual is allowed to purchase an immovable property without any limit. Now, I am, my son is abroad, and now I feel that I want to gift. मुझे बहुत प्यार आ गया मेरे बेटे पे, and now ये 10 करोड़ की property I want to gift to my son, who is a non-resident. अगर you guys have heard me correctly for last 10 minutes, then in my previous slide you would have read कि मैं resident individual, मैंने land purchase की, तो अगर मुझे gift करना है, then the previous slide said yes, अगर मेरे relative, which is as per 277, I can gift, and my son is covered under that definition, so I should be allowed to gift this property to my son. I think I'm clear till now. Yes. So gifting is allowed. Now the question that comes up is, if you guys are aware, there is a transaction under FEMA, which is called as Liberalized Remittance Scheme, under which a resident individual, if he wants to remit funds outside India, there is a limit. And what is the limit? Can anybody just post it in the chat box? What is the limit of LRS? That limit is something which is applicable per financial year. Yes, Yanshu, it is 2,50,000 USD. Correct. Not 2 lakh rupali, it is 2,50,000 US dollars. That is the limit which is allowed to remit outside India. But the question is that when I want to gift 10 crore worth of flat to my son outside India, is it permitted, or will the definition or will the limit of LRS apply? What are your views? The Immovable Property Act or the Immovable Property regulations that we are currently looking, it says that gifting from a resident to an NR is permitted, provided the resident has purchased it correctly and provided the resident is gifting it to his son or a relative. But at the same time, there is conditions which are mentioned under LRS, which says that LRS you can use, a resident individual can use up to 2,50,000 USD only. Even if he wants to gift money, he can gift up to 2,50,000 USD only. That is what the LRS definition said. So Varun and Rupali are of the view that LRS conditions should not apply and you should be able to gift. Is there any other view? Seems like only non-debt rules would apply if the flat is gifted. Apurva is also of the view that LRS conditions should not apply here. I would like to give a food for thought here. If that would be the case, then in that case, most of the HNIs, what they would do is, instead of gifting rupees to their sons or relatives, they will buy immovable property or anything else and gift it away. Frankly speaking, it is a gray area. There is no law that is specifically mentioned. So if any of you try this out and it had worked for you, then do let us know. We can also accordingly advise our clients. But yes, this question is a valid question that holds through, because if we do not, LRS limits does not apply here, then every individual, then LRS limit would have no meaning, because you would convert it into anything in kind and gift it away, because there the limits would not apply. I would like to keep it as a food for thought. And let's see. Umesh is of the view that LRS deals with actual outflow of forex. Gifting of immovable property does not necessarily result in that. Yes, Umesh, it is dealing with foreign outflow, but FEMA provisions are not like income tax provisions. You have to go by the intent of the law. RBI has also said for a resident individual, if you want to gift rupees, then that also 250 is the limit. If we are going to be doing any transaction, there also they put in limit, because they want to ensure that the foreign money, the Indian asset, is not going outside India or to a foreign resident or a national or an NRI without any limit. That is also what they want to ensure, because if you see today's current scenario, we would have seen that a lot and a majority of children today are going abroad for studies, which is where this scenarios would hold more result outside. Keep it as a food for thought if this coming. Yes, I am aware that the LRS limits are for actual rupee limits, but that does not mean that it does not apply. It cannot apply to this kind of transactions also. If you've actually tried, anybody, do share your views. We can definitely delve deeper into it and debate or get clarity on whether it will apply or not. The second topic that comes up is inheritance. If you want to inheritance, if you want to, you have receiving any property from a resident, you are permitted. If you're receiving it from any NRI outside India, NRI, OCI, you are still permitted, provided that original person had acquired asset as per FEMA regulations. And now the question is, what will happen in case of a agriculture land, plantation, and the condition here is that even if it's an agricultural, my father is an agriculturist and the son is abroad. Now he wants to understand. He wants to gift after the death of his father. The agricultural land can be inherited and received by the foreign NRI, but the condition here is says that yes, agricultural land can be inherited. You can acquire it, you can hold it. Now the question is, once if I hold, can I also do agricultural activity on it? What are the views? Or do I need to only hold? Let me put up a thought here and furthermore add on, which says that as an NRI, as such, you are not allowed to do, as such, you're not allowed to acquire agricultural property and do agricultural activities. But inheritance may you are allowed to acquire, rather inherit the immovable property, which is an agricultural land, plantation property, or farmhouse. Here the debate goes on, and a gray area is that you are definitely allowed to hold, but whether you will be allowed to do agricultural activity on it, or you just as a puppet, just hold it and keep it, that's a gray area here. A lot of view professionals have view that hold karke what we will do, we need to be, they should be allowed to do agricultural activity, because there is nowhere somewhere which is specifically said that not allowed. So yes, allowed is one of the view. Also, one of the view is that since RBI does not want you to acquire agricultural property, does not want you to get involved into agricultural activity, even if you are allowed to inherit, does not mean you are allowed activity. Both views are there. Both views have their strong reasoning. I will leave on the professional guidance here, experts, people to take a call what to do in that scenario. And when it says agricultural activities, you can't do anything. Now, the next question is, what do we do in terms of selling it or transferring it or gifting of the immovable property? Again, if for any reason you have any which ways you have acquired immovable property, which is like agricultural land, plantation, or farmhouse, what you can do is you can immediately sell it or gift it to a resident. Secondly, if it is a property which is other than this area, then you have the liberty to sell or gift it to anybody who can be an NRI, OCI, or resident. But if you are selling an agricultural land or plantation or a farmhouse, then you can sell or gift it only and only to a resident. Now here, there is one more thing which needs to be looked into is when you are transferring. Say, for example, you have purchased the immovable property, which is by way of an inheritance, or when you were holding this immovable property, you were a resident, you went abroad, now you're a non-resident, but when you're a resident, you had acquired an immovable property, which you are holding, and it can be any immovable property you are holding. So you're allowed to hold immovable property under section. So 6(5) says, okay, you're allowed to hold. Then comes that, okay, now what to do? So that scenario, we will look it up when we are taking a transaction of transfer. So this is just a table helping you understand what do we do when we are purchasing immovable property. Resident, NRI, OCI, all are allowed. If you are receiving it as gift, okay, everybody gift, sabko pasand hai, all are allowed. Inheritance pay, yes, all can take. If you're selling agricultural land, sell it to only resident. If you're gifting it, you can gift it to anybody. If it's an other than ineligible items, gifting of ineligible items, it will only be to resident. The condition is, if now say for example, immovable property which was acquired by resident when he was acquired by a non-resident when he was resident, or he had achieved it as inheritance or received it in form of gift. So the previous buyer was say resident, आपने receive किया है as gift, inheritance, or you had only acquired it when you were resident. In all these three scenarios, if you wish to sell, then RBI has not given them a general permission to sell. Hence, you would not find it in the law. The interpretation says that you will have to go for RBI permission in such scenarios if you wish to sell such property. Now we move to the next topic, which is saying that what are the scenarios wherein you want to acquire property jointly. like NRI and OCI want to acquire property jointly. So now, if there is a person, Indian resident, say, and he is a spouse of an NRI or OCI, who is a person resident outside India, then they can acquire one immobile. So it's like a resident individual or an NRI OCI who is a person resident outside India, not a NRI OCI, then they can acquire one immobile property jointly. Agar aapki wife is an NRI and OCI, then there is no problem. You can jointly acquire the property. Acquisition formalities you need to complete. Specifically when there is a marriage with a foreign citizen, RBI ये उल्टा डंकी का situation है, wherein RBI says that okay, rule of marriage should be there, marriage should be registered, marriage should have lasted at least for 2 years prior to the date of acquisition. Then and then only you can have a joint acquisition, whereas one person is a foreign citizen or a person resident outside. A non-resident spouse must not be otherwise prohibited from such acquisition. Then and only then he will be allowed to do the acquisition, even joint acquisition. Now we move to, there is an immovable property in India. You want to buy it for some permitted activity. So who can buy? Now for branch office, project office, they are permitted to acquire. For liaison office, RBI said that you can acquire, you cannot acquire, take it on lease and take it on lease up to 5 years. Thirdly, if whatever acquisition you are doing, you need to file Form IPI within 90 days of the acquisition. And this activity, that has to be an incidental activity to your business, then only then, that is the activity you need to do in this acquired property. And person resident outside India can transfer such property by way of mortgage to any Indian bank for the borrowing purposes. Now we move further to transfer and repatriation. As I said, first of all, acquisition. If you want to acquire, if an NRI wants to acquire, then they can make payment via 3 routes. As we saw it in the first slide as well. One, use NRE account, NRO account, FCNR account, or you can do it via the normal banking channels from your foreign bank account. What you cannot use is traveler's check, foreign currency notes, and as I had mentioned, any other platforms which are intermediaries, please do not try and use them. Second, now suppose acquisition is done, now you want to transfer, repatriate, or sell. So the first point says property which was acquired by way of section 6.5. Now what is 6.5? 6.5 states that a person resident outside India may hold, own, transfer, or invest in any immobile property situated in India if such property was acquired, held, or owned by such person when he was a resident, or it is inherited from a resident. So if you are a 6.5 or his successor, you cannot repatriate outside India the sale proceeds of such immobile property without permission of RBI. This is what I was speaking, that if you had acquired when you were resident, then you became NR. Now you want to sell, and after sale you want to repatriate the funds, then repatriation will not be permitted without RBI permission. Second says, if you want to sell immobile property, which is other than the eligible one in India by an NRI or an OCI, then you are allowed to do so subject to conditions. Now, what are the conditions? First, you should have bought it as per FEMA, complied to all the conditions. Secondly, the funds should have come in through normal banking channels or the permitted routes. And third, up to 2 properties, there is no restriction to how much you can remit or repatriate. But beyond 2 properties, you need to take RBI permissions, or I'll give you one more route. And up to 2 properties, there is no limit to how much you can repatriate. And this 2 properties is lifetime for an NRI. Now, if suppose you've done beyond 2 properties and now you have received the funds, you cannot repatriate in this condition, in this section, but as per NRI, you can use the route of 1 million USD, and you can remit under the scheme of 1 million USD, whatever money you have received as sale proceeds of that flat after payment of due taxes and all, but there is a capping there. Whereas here, there is no capping. That is how it is different and beneficial. Let's go deeper into understanding what will happen practically. And these are a few cases which we have practically dealt with. And I would like participants to share their views and answers in the chat box. So first of all, the scenario is an NRI wants to purchase agricultural property land in the outskirts of Sanand. So my first question would be whether he'll be allowed. Further information is father as well as grandfather are all farmers who are holding agricultural land in Sanand. What he wants to do is he wants to transfer funds from US to his NRE account for purchase of this agricultural property. So my question as consultant, as professionals to this NRIs, will it is permitted, whether it is permitted for Mr. X to purchase this agricultural land from his NRE account? Please post your answers in the chat box in yes and no. Okay, not allowed. Sandeep also says not allowed. Ravi also says not allowed. Thank you so much. I'm so happy all of you are so alert and aware. Kalpesh also says not allowed. Yes, even if he's bringing the funds from the NRE account, since what he wants to buy is an agricultural land, he is not permitted to buy. The second question is, would it be different if he's purchasing from his NRO account? The answer here is also no. Even if he is buying, yes. Ravi says yes, no, Ravi. Even if he is buying from his NRO account, since he is buying a property which is an agricultural land, irrespective from where he is buying, he will not be allowed to purchase this land. Now, the third question that comes up is, and this is a practical question which happened with one of our Dubai based clients. He was very passionate to buy an agricultural land and wanted to set up a business in India. And a wonderful idea that I want to provide organic food without chemicals, buying growing food without chemicals and organic food to Indians. And that's why I intend to purchase an agricultural land, produce in India, and sell. Out of ignorance, he also bought his flat in India. I'm sorry, he bought an agricultural land in India, spent a lot of money doing fencing, re-leveling, and all those stuff. And then he met us. So the question is, what would you do if you have purchased, wrongly purchased such agricultural land? Because what I understand after communicating to him and a lot of other clients is that there are a lot of people, especially sellers, brokers, stamp duty offices, agencies who are not aware of this laws, and hence your entire transaction will get completed without any hindrances that you are an NRI and how are you buying an agricultural land. In fact, those NRIs also get the status of agriculturist. They are become farmer also as per the Indian laws. So the question is, troubles doesn't happen at that time. Troubles happen later on once the default is done. So what would you do in case the wrong purchase is happening? So the first thing that you need to do is regularize the transaction, transfer the land to a resident जिनको permitted है agricultural land में transfer करो. You can also gift it to your resident. So regularize the transaction. Default जो कर दिया है, जो non compliance कर दिया है, stop that thing. Second thing, what you will have to do is go to RBI, seek permission that I had done this transaction. Please allow me the permission of acquiring it, which I did it for some period of time. And what RBI will ask you is no, RBI won't give you permission, but ask you to compound. Go ahead and do the compounding. You will have to go ahead and do the compounding. Tell RBI that I had wrongly purchased. Yes, to Arun, there will be compounding. You'll have to tell RBI I had wrongly purchased this transaction. I have regularized this transaction. RBI will do the compounding, and depends on your luck, RBI will charge you a penalty as well. I have covered in the next topic on to what extent RBI has the transaction wherein a foreign citizen had acquired a land, immovable property in Goa, and the property was a residential house. RBI permission was not taken. These are all practical cases, people, because I have dealt with such cases a lot. In fact, in Goa, earlier, a couple of years back, lot of NRIs were buying properties in Goa left, right, and center because there was no compliances, no stoppages, and RBI had really caught hold of a lot of them, and to that extent that RBI had taken away the entire gain that they had made in that property, and at times the trouble arose. In a lot of cases, trouble arose after 15 years. You know, you are holding the property for 15 years. Then later on, when you're going to sell it, that is the time when you sell and you are trying to repatriate or we are trying to sell, that is the time RBI comes into picture, and that are the areas where the entire non-compliances creep up, and then there is nothing much left to do except for paying the penalties. So now the question here is, what will be the course of action? Course of action, I have already said. You need to sell and then put your sale proceeds into NRO account, file for compounding, and if repatriation is permitted, only subject to the conditions of NRO, that's what you use. Yeah, this is an actual case, plot in Kerala, which was bought without RBI permission. Flat was done. RBI asked to sell the property. But now here, one thing, again, little different happened is RBI asked them to sell the property, selling ho gaya. Now gain charge karna tha. RBI wanted to charge them penalty. Now what RBI's normal parlance in such scenario was, whatever gain, there's an undue gain that you have made, that undue gain RBI will take completely away from you. So in this scenario, what happened was applicant put up a valuation report saying that property is worth 85 lakhs. RBI didn't find it appropriate. So RBI got their own valuation done and the property worth came to be 1 crore 30 lakhs. And RBI charged them penalty for an undue gain, considering not their valuation report, but their own RBI's valuation report. The difference between the RBI's valuation report and the construction cost is what was considered as undue gain, and the entire amount was charged as penalty to the client. So that was all that we spoke about for immovable property in India, covered on the areas which are important, right from acquisition, transfer, sale, inheritance, and repatriation. We also touched base upon immovable property being purchased by PO, BO, branch office, project office, or liaison. Now we are also covering up on the other side of the transaction, which is if there are resident Indians, and there are a lot of resident Indians, as we spoke on the first part, that want to buy property outside India, example of Dubai, which I was speaking. In such scenarios, what is it that we should be doing, or what are the laws we should be careful about? Now, acquisition of immovable property outside India, if you are acquiring as a resident individual, okay, then you can make the purchase by sending the money under LRS scheme. Yes, even if you are purchasing immovable property outside India, that 20% TCS wala condition are applicable for this also, and such transfers will be done. Second is, you can acquire by way of gift, you can acquire by way of inheritance. If you will look at the provisions does not talk about gift, but FAQ. RBI FAQ says that yes, you can acquire by way of gift. Hence, we have taken the liberty to add it here, but be very clear. The provisions, the bare provisions does not talk about gift. The FAQ talks about it. Acquisition by inheritance is permitted. Obviously, acquisition by immovable property on lease is also permitted. Jointly with a relative is also what you can do it. Out of the income which you have earned outside India and now you want to use that income for investment into immovable property, that is also permitted. If you have already acquired one property and you are selling that, and now you have the sale proceeds of that asset you want to not bring it India but reutilize for acquisition of another, then that is also permitted. Secondly, one important point that comes up here is, especially in terms of LRS, a lot of you might have heard 250, you want to purchase property up to 5 lakh US dollars. What majority of the people used to do is 250 transfer from one account, 250 transfer from wife's account, send 5 lakh USD, purchase the property jointly. That is the safest way to doing it. Of late, there is some change in the LRS definitions, the interpretation which says that maybe joint ownership or co-ownership may not be required, but it is always advisable to have co-ownership when you both are sending, or gifting and then acquiring it in the individual names. So these are the few ways in which an individual can acquire immovable property outside India. I will repeat, either they can buy their own individual property outside India via LRS acquisition ke through, or they can buy it receive it or acquire it or hold it via inheritance, or you can also purchase it from a non-resident or a resident. Both is permitted. The second part which comes up is, what if there is a company And now that company wants to acquire immobile property. Now it says that company can acquire immobile property outside India, but the definition says that Indian entity having overseas office may acquire immobile property outside India for business and residential purposes of its staff, as per the direction of RBI. So RBI is very clear if you want to acquire, and there are further conditions which you need to comply to if you want to, purchase any immobile property outside India for your business purposes or residential purposes. You need to comply to it. Beyond that, the second thing comes up is, okay, I want to develop a immobile property outside India, which can get covered into the definition of construction and development sector. The law is very clear. If you want to get into real estate business, how it is not allowed in India, similarly outside India also, residential business, or sorry, real estate business is not permitted. But if you want to enter into construction and development, that is permitted. Then there is one question whether only in leasing of property abroad is it permissible. Again, law has nowhere clarified whether leasing of property outside India and getting into the business of leasing of that property is permitted or not. Law is not mentioned anywhere. Uh, we had such one case wherein one of our clients was intending to do a leasing business outside India. On our discussions with RBI and banker, we understood, especially with the bankers, what we understood is that RBI do not give such permissions and leasing should not be permitted. That is our interpretation. But if there is any other row, what I'm trying to share here, friends, is whatever maximum practical learnings that we have received over the past 17 years of exclusively practicing into FEMA and valuation, whatever specific nitty-gritties and areas that we have understood, I'm trying to share all of that with you. So that, and these are all the areas which we often get as requests from our clients that whether we can do this or not. And it's always better to know, because a lot of it are not clear under the law, then such areas can be taken care into. So please don't feel, madam, बहुत सारे gray areas बता रहे, but that is the objective, that you all are aware. जो clear है law में वो तो मैंने, I am already sharing it, but at the same time, something which are gray areas, it is important to know, so that at least we know when to trigger the button and get more clarification or get more deeper understanding on the same. So now we are putting up further more case studies. Investing outside India does not have too many complications. The law is pretty simple. Uh, Hence, we'll take a few case studies here. The fact is, Ambani family instead intends to purchase immobile property in UAE. I don't know why the colleague who has prepared this presentation feels Ambani will go into UAE. I think they should go to some other countries also. Property investment is of 1 million US dollars. Can multiple family members invest together? I'm sure you are able to answer this question. Yes, Apurva says yes, and that yes was very quick. Apurva and Umesh, yes, the answer is yes. You need to make sure you comply to the conditions of LRS and the limits of the LRS. Then it is absolutely permitted. Can jointly purchase the property. 250 is what is allowed. Property, as I said, it's preferred to be habited in joint name. Ownership needs to be in proportion to the investment. Investment is made by them. And family members covered, no definition for family members. Yes, I don't, I would rather here say nothing is related to family members here. Any two person who are ready to have a joint ownership or co-ownership can go ahead and do this. Investment in immobile property abroad under NLS. We are going for the second case. Let's see what the case is. Ambani family again intends to purchase immobile property in UAE. Property investment is of 1 million. Can property be purchased on installment basis? And can property be purchased under EMI or mortgage loan? Guys, this is what I have not spoken so very clearly. Let's see what you guys say. No, Sandeep says no. Umesh says no. Apurva says no. Sandeep is also saying no. Oh, makes me feel proud. You guys have been listening and remembering it so well. Yes, LRS does not allow you to, take up loans and all, because there is limit to LRS and you cannot do loan agreements abroad because it's not permitted. In fact, there's a case of Dharampal Agarwal, wherein I think he was the first one, or maybe amongst the early first one, who was not only not allowed, but levied a hefty penalty also for doing this kind of a transaction. Third case is again through LRS. You want to purchase immovable property, can property be purchased through company under LRS? This was actually a case wherein a client had come to us, and he, if I remember it correctly, wanted to do this in Hong Kong. So he said, Madam, I will open up a company in Hong Kong, and then that company in Hong Kong will purchase immovable property. Can I do that? Okay. Umesh says no, LRS is for individuals. Ravi says yes. Apurva says according to LRS, it is available for resident individuals. I think so. So Apurva and Ravi, LRS may, so when you, first of all, when you open up a company outside India, even resident individuals are allowed to open company outside India under the LRS, which is called as LRS ODI. So company is what they will be able to open under the LRS. Now, what the transaction would mean is Indian individuals, here in this case, 3 people, will do LRS ODI, and they will invest in a company outside India, which is ABC company. And then that company will go ahead further and purchase the residential property. I hope I have made it clear. So the question is not that under LRS you will be purchasing under LRS ODI, you can definitely open up a company outside India. That is permitted, provided that company is not a shell company, or rather, provided that company is doing bona fide activity. That is the word RBI is using. Either it is an SPV or it is doing bona fide activity. If that is doing, then you are permitted to open up the company. The second question here that comes up is whether that company is permitted to acquire house property or not. So this type of transaction is out of the purview of Rule 21. Whatever is permitting immobile property outside India, that is where it is not talking about such transaction. The question will flow to ODI. What is the purpose of the ABC company? Whether ABC company, because then now acquisition is by the company which is doing there and local company. So wahan ka apply hoga, and the question will be for what purpose ABC company is buying, whether it is incidental or not, or whether it is some business purposes, then it will get qualified under the ODI definition and call will need to be taken. This will be our last case study, and then we'll move forward to questions. ABC Private Limited, incorporated in India, has an overseas office. Can that overseas office purchase immobile property? I already mentioned on that front. These are the conditions which has been mentioned by RBI. If you fulfill those conditions, then you are permitted to acquire. This is mainly with respect to property which was purchased outside India, and for returning Indians, a person resident in India may hold, you are allowed to hold, you are allowed to permitted to the transactions, and you're also allowed to bring funds. Now, if you are returning Indian, ideally you have the time limit of 180 days to bring funds back to India, or you are allowed, you can reinvest it also abroad into any of the assets, provided you have paid taxes on the same. This is one of the conditions wherein says that whether it is allowed on repatriation on installment basis or not. The answer is no, installment basis, you are not allowed. Thank you very much. This, what you see on the screen is a QR code link. So we all professionals run together a group which is called a Tax and FEMA WhatsApp group, wherein we all, whatever queries we have, we share it on the group and share our knowledge with each other. I welcome you all to the WhatsApp group. It is a curated group. So make sure when you scan and request to join the group, you won't be directly added to the group. Instead, somebody from the admin team will be sharing with you a questionnaire. Once you fill it up and they know that, yes, you are a professional who is intending to join the group, then they will add up to you. So make sure if you wish to join the group, make sure you also add up details into that form so that you can be added to the group. And we try here in this group, all of us together try to solve our tax and FEMA queries. I will like to take up the questions, if any, here, so that we can finish it up within the timeline. Kalpesh has a question, restrict to transfer, and when analysts sell the property at that time, respective rule will apply. This is an answer, so we don't need to answer this. In case a resident individual is giving monetary gift to his NRI relative, so the resident will send via the LRS route. Would there be TCS when making this remittance, and how would this impact the NRI? See, LRS may TCS definition, you'll have to check what is applicable in TCS. LRS may, it will be allowed gifting limit under LRS. LRS limit is 2,50,000 USD. If you are gifting uh, shares, there is another limit of 50,000 USD, I think. That is the worth of shares that you can gift. Monetary gift, I think, is 2,50,000, which is what the limit is. Uh, and any LRS, whether it applies or not, TCS, I'm not very expert in tax, so please pardon me. Can an Indian resident form a company outside India for acquiring property and leasing that property? Pankaj, my answer to that question would be no, because as I said, that might get transferred into real estate business. And as far as I said, that when we were discussing a similar case with one of the bankers, his view was that RBI does not allow such transaction when it is leasing the property. So my view would be no, but I would suggest check it out with your bankers, and if they permit, uh, you may do so, but my view would be no. Leasing will have foreign exchange commitment, so it should be looked from that angle. Yes, Kalpesh, I agree to your point. Can you share your firm's contact details for appointment? Pankaj, it is available on the screen. You can connect. Can an Indian NGO registered as a trust receive gift of immovable property in a foreign country from a foreigner? Oh my God, Ravi, very. I'll have to read it twice to come to this. Can an Indian NGO registered as a trust receive gift? Sir, first of all, I will like to stop here this question, because if there is a trust and if a trust is receiving foreign contribution, be it terms of a donation, gift, I'm assuming it as donation, you will need to follow not only the FEMA provisions, but need to look into the Foreign Contribution Regulations Act as well. FCRA को study करना पड़ेगा, and then you will have to look into the entire transaction. Shruti says, can a resident receive gift from a non-resident outside India? Whether need to repatriate or can hold? Oh, Shruti, Indians can receive gift. Indian government said, पैसा आता है, आने दो, कोई problem नहीं. So receiving gift, not a problem at all from FEMA perspective. Whether you will be taxed on that or not, that would depend upon income tax. That would depend upon from whom you are receiving the gift. So do look at those regulations. But from FEMA, I can tell you, yes, you are allowed to receive gift, and you don't need to hold it outside here. You can receive the gifts in India. Ravi says, if yes, I think it's a continued query over here, which we have answered. FCRA applicable. What if inherited agricultural land is given on rent to a resident agriculturist? Mohammed, this is a difficult question. As I said, and I'll give you a practical answer and a theoretical answer both over here, Mohammed. Theoretical answer is rent. When you're going to be renting an agricultural land, it is also going to be happening for agricultural activity. On an agricultural land, you are not going to be doing anything other than agricultural activity. So according to me, if you're not allowed to do directly agricultural activity on the land, then indirectly renting it and then somebody else doing it should not be allowed to. That would be a very, very strict professional answer. But at the same time, if I think a little leniently, the question is also that how would you come to know about it and how would you stop? Because one view definitely is, and that too for professionals, that if you're allowed to hold, you are also allowed to do agricultural activity. So I'm sorry if I'm not able to give you a very clear cut view here, but yes, that's the situation. What are the laws or acts which need to be followed for foreign transaction investments apart from FEMA Act? So wherever there is a FEMA transaction, any foreign transaction, FEMA is the primary thing that you need to look into. Every other act, like income tax, companies act, all of it would apply as it would apply to such relevant transaction. Like for example, if I would say you're doing a transaction of export, or then in that case, FEMA will come into picture in terms of timelines. Income tax may come into picture if it is with some, related party, then transfer pricing and all will come. If you're issuing shares, Companies Act will also come, FEMA will also come, income tax will also come. So all other acts which are applicable for that nature of transaction will also apply, but FEMA will be an additional act that will apply to it. Please throw light on purchase of PIO. PIO, person of Indian origin. Sir, here NRI's definition is what is looked into. Please check whether you fall under NRI definition or not, because the entire provisions, transactions, allowances that have been given are given for NRI. So if you fall under that definition, then you will be able to do. I hope I have answered all the questions. Yes, and I've done justice to you. And exactly at 6, I've tried to finish it off. If there is anything more, we are available, and even we can chat on the groups. And thank you very, very much for listening on to this. If you give me last 30 seconds, I will take one more question that has been here from Sandeep. One of my client who was an Indian citizen has now acquired foreign citizenship. So he is an OCI card holder or not. She was doing business as a proprietor. What are the compliances? Sandeep, you need to check whether he is going to be an OCI card holder. If not, try to ask him to take an OCI card, because it only has benefits than any hindrances to him. And based on that, he needs to take a call. If he's an OCI card holder, he can still do business as a proprietor, but it will be on NRO, non-repat basis. He will not be able to take funds outside India. I hope that clarifies. Thank you so much, Rajendra, Varun, Pankaj, for appreciating the presentation. It really matters. Thank you very, very much, all of you. Thank you, everybody.